Hey there, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Be More Podcast. I am Brittany.
I'm Maria, and today I'm going to start off with a story because yesterday on Instagram, I posted on my story that me and my sisters were putting up the Christmas tree already. Mind you, it's September 6th, so Labor Day hasn't even passed. Labor Day's tomorrow, and then Halloween is not even remotely close to now. But our Christmas tree is up. So I've had a couple of people DM me on Instagram and be like, why? Like, what are you doing? And honestly, once September 1st hits in the Philippines, it's Christmas. The people in the Philippines are already celebrating Christmas, so it's not even a big deal. So we texted our mom yesterday because she was at work, and she was like, oh, absolutely, put up the tree. It's September. And our dad was over yesterday. He was like, yeah, absolutely, put up the tree. It's September. So it's a Filipino thing.
When did you ever put up a Christmas tree in September?
So we're really good about it. After Halloween, I think because of COVID, my sisters were like, can we just put up the tree? It's September.
Whatever, if it makes her happy, makes you guys.
And in the Philippines, literally when September hits, it's the Burr months. So September, October, November, December. So it's Christmas.
Why are those months all Burr months?
I don't know. I couldn't. I mean, that's a good observation, right?
You just blew my mind. Why?
In the Philippines, because it's Burr, September, December, whatever.
No, but I know that. But why are those months? Why are those months the only months that end in BER, and why are they all consecutive, and why are they all at the end of the year?
Well, September, October is it's numerical, right? Even though September is 7 and October is 8, the whole, I don't know. This goes back to calendar history, which I don't know very well. Back when Julius Caesar, I think, was around, so all the months are fucked up. September was supposed to be the seventh month of the year.
That as a thing before.
Yeah, so I don't know why they're the only 4 that have the Burr ending, but I
don't know. So weird.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's because numerical is September, I don't know if is no something.
Okay. I mean, that part of it makes sense. Nothing else makes sense, but that's not a strange.
No. Yeah.
Okay, so you're putting up your Christmas tree.
It's already up.
And did you do all the rest of the house too, or you just have your tree up?
Just a Christmas tree. And
I don't think I'm ever putting up a tree anymore. I think I'm done with Christmas decorating.
Are you done, or do you not have space? What?
We also that. I don't really have a lot of space for a tree. But the only way that we can put the tree up is if I find a way to secure it to the wall.
Oh, yeah, because your cats.
And that's a project that I don't want to do.
Okay, fair.
So I might just put up a little garland and
call it a
day. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, our Christmas tree stuff, that's it though.
Honestly, I have more fall and Halloween decorations than I do Christmas decorations anyway. So.
I'm sure, yeah. You like Halloween more anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So you're festived out. You're ready for
something.
September 6th.
Yeah. It's literally September 6th and my Christmas tree's up. But you know what? It's fine. Time's an illusion anyway. What do I care?
I mean, really. And hopefully subconsciously in some way, shape, or form, whenever you look at it, it'll give you positive endorphins and then you'll feel good.
Literally. That's also why we put it up, I feel like. Because we put it up, we were also watching Home Alone while we were putting it up. So
I saw that. That's what made me
I love that movie.
So. I had a dream about that movie recently.
Home Alone? 1 or 2?
Yeah, it wasn't. It's never Macaulay Culkin. It's always the robbers. It's always those guys that I randomly see in my dreams.
Really?
Yeah.
Joe Pesci and whatever his face is.
Mm-hmm. I don't know
why. They're terrifying. Well, they're terrifying when you're watching as a kid.
I always remember them being funny. I remember them being terrifying looking.
Yeah.
They're always fun. Their characters were always funny.
Right.
The person who's afraid of everything.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start. You know what? I used to feel I have a bunny, a bunny pillow. It's an Easter bunny pillow, and I always used to feel weird about leaving it out on days that when it wasn't Easter. But now I'm gonna leave it out all the time. Just be
who cares?
Whatever.
Who cares? Why
does it matter? A happy birthday pillow that I literally put out for 3 days of the year.
And then you're it's done. Well, who cares?
I wonder if that would boost my mood if it was just, I always just had like subconscious like thought of it always being my birthday. Probably not. That
Probably not, because then you feel older.
yeah, that would probably work in the opposite way.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what this episode's gonna be about. I would assume people by like minute 10 figure it out that I don't like whatever. This episode's gonna be whatever.
Well, we have some people that are going to be coming on in the next couple
Hopefully.
of weeks, which we've decided that we really like. So if you, I really would love for us to be able to get more input from people about where they want this podcast to go. I think that the two of us, we talk a lot about we in our last episode when Vin came on, we talked a lot about the concepts and things that we like to talk about. But I would like, I don't know, I'm thinking maybe we can play with, this episode is going to be like us strategy talking about having a podcast while we're doing the podcast.
Correct.
Like doing stuff where we have like different episodes of different things. Like sometimes it's just us BSing. Sometimes it's us trying something. Sometimes it's us
Explain
doing something. You know what I mean?
Did you see that they're trying to get a vaccine out before election?
The more that stuff happens, the more that I feel like it is all like underground connected to it. You want to know what happened the other day? And I was literally talking to myself in the car after it happened. I don't care what political opinion you have, but the second that your actions start to intentionally have a negative effect on other people or put an other person's well-being in harm's way, that's when it's not acceptable.
Forget it.
And if your actions to do that are fueled by your political party choice, then I have an issue with your you know what I mean, like with your
right.
So I was on like the highway by me, and there was a bunch of like middle of it. No, what wasn't even the. It was like the early afternoon. It was like 11 or 12. There's no one usually on the road in the middle of the day. There was a bunch of traffic just going in one direction. I was like, what is going on? Like I literally was sitting there for like 5 minutes. I was like, something is going on. And I was listening to the radio. There were no accidents. Super weird. I checked on the maps to see if there was like an accident reported. Why am I sitting here? This is ridiculous. Then we slowly started moving, and I see all these cars with flashing lights on.
Okay.
I was like, okay, like maybe it's a funeral procession. Like that's fine. Like I understand that.
Oh God.
I'm trying to get slowly around these cars. They're weaving like in and out of every lane, and I can't something attached to their car, and I can't see what it is. It was like 6 or 7 cars, and then they're like weaving in and out of the lanes. They almost hit 3 people, and then all of a sudden they get into like a single file line across all the 3 lanes, but have their flashes on and are just going like 5 miles an hour, so no one can get around them.
Yeah.
Now they're slow, and guess whose flag is plastered? Like 3 of them per car across all of these cars. And I was like, so that's what it was. Like they were representing their political party.
Yeah.
I watched one person almost like right into the center like thing on the highway, the divide, like by the grace of God, not crash because they were weaving, like they were trying to get away from them and weren't going fast. And this continued. Like they did it until like we got to like a one of the lights where people could like turn around, and they like all turned around and go the other way. That's the moment where I was like, well, now you make people not like you, and you make it look like the reason why they shouldn't like you is because of your political choices, because you're choosing like this.
Like you're advertising your political view while doing this. So now all I know is that you're
right. Only assessment people have to make, and you're taking an action that's not making you look good because you're putting other people's lives in danger. Like you don't, when it comes to cars, I understand that we take advantage of them all the time, and I understand that I even take advantage of them, but like that is a human death machine.
Yeah, that people forget.
Yourself in a situation to act like an asshole and not thinking about how you're affecting other people or could potentially be hurting somebody else, that's where you get a bad rep. That's where you make people have judgments against your entire like opinion related to it. Mm-hmm. And like all of these things that we deal with keep stemming back to politics. And I really wish that there's so much, I know that there's so much more going on underneath like what we see on the surface of everything that's happening with politics these days. I am so curious to know what the in-depth like corruption and issues are. Like in my mind, I was like, I wonder if these people are being paid to do this right now.
Yeah, and that's like corruption that you see abroad but not here.
Right. Or like the like and that like is how I feel about the election at this point too. Like and Corona at this point too. It's like so
very political.
Yeah, and it's so
for what? For what reason?
People do shit for power. People do stupid shit for power. And it's funny because the more and the more that I like talk to different people who are in power, who make these like unfortunate actions or like are just inconsiderate of other people and are working towards having power in something, like the need for them to have that level of power is just stemmed in insecurity. Mm-hmm. Which is just all of it's just so weird. Like I'm so
you're tired.
Yeah, I'm so over it.
Yeah, it's tiring.
Like having conversations about Corona and having conversations about what is right. Mm-hmm. But I feel like I'm over. Because like you said, everybody has to do what's good for them. And I understand it's different for everybody, but like it doesn't have to be like
it doesn't have to be political.
A lot of people's rights are like, well, I'm going to do what's right for me and F everybody else. And I'm kind of over that.
Because you can't beat a pandemic like that.
And like so many of the situations that I feel like I've been in the last couple of weeks related to like Corona or not, people bring so much of their own experiences into things and so much of their own expectations into things that it skews their perspective, and they can't, like, people are lacking the ability to be sympathetic and empathetic.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And that's what's wrong with the world.
Right. And it's so extremely, I've had so many instances in the last couple of weeks where I've seen that, like on a small scale, like related directly to me with like my friends and family, and then on a larger scale, like community wise. And it's just like, how do you get back from that? And it's just like, I have a lot of hope because I know that there are so many people that are trying to be better and have the conversations, but like I feel like we've gotten to the point now where like everything just seems to be like wiped clean.
I mean, agreed, but also like because we're such like empaths, like that's the issue. Like people that aren't and just are very selfish and just think about themselves, like don't get it. Yeah. So it takes a toll on us, which it shouldn't. It should really take a toll on them.
Oh yeah. Well, that's something that so I was having oh my gosh, this is like a part of a big conversation. So have you seen that there's been a lot of like allegations of sexual abuse towards children in like the dance world? Have you heard anything about this?
No, but I wouldn't be surprised because I was talking to one of our mutual friends yesterday about sexual allegations in not just the Catholic religion, but the other religion that she practices too. So like sexual allegations like with people in power to children is just like everywhere.
Yes, but now it's like coming to light a lot. And it was interesting to me because I remembered having situations like that as I was getting older and training in the dance world with like male teachers who weren't appropriate, but like you just kind of brushed it off and was like, okay, this is just the way it is. And allegations started coming out between like a very well-known professional male ballerina at a school and was teaching, and then like a bunch of other stuff started coming out about like relationships in LA and like commercial dancers and all this stuff all over the dance world. And we ended up having a conversation. Then like things were coming out about people on TikTok and like conversations about grooming were happening, and like that were relating back to like the Pizzagate thing. Like that's another like whole conspiracy about like what the government runs on. And have you heard about that whole thing with the pizza and like the Wayfair?
Oh, Wayfair, yes, yeah.
And all these kids being sold and like all that stuff. So like I've been having like a lot of conversations about like sexual assault, and there have been instances where like being a female, had to bring it to somebody else's attention to say like, this is what's happening. Somebody who's supposed to say something, right? Whether it's a parent because their kid is doing something they're not supposed to be doing, or it's an employer because somebody like it's on staff is doing what they're not supposed to be doing, or it's literally like a friend, right? And I have more of those instances that have occurred to me through like adolescence into professionalism than I like would like to count. Like that should actually be counted.
Right. It's more common than you think is what you're trying to say.
The unfortunate reality of it. Yeah. And the hardest thing for me, and that's so many of the instances that have like come to light about this, is that the onus of responsibility for handling the situation is put on like the victim.
It's so bad, I know.
Versus whether it's male, female, whatever, versus actually educating the person who took action and is supposed to be like the adult in the situation who was wrong.
Yeah.
Like, and like the difference between educating them versus like
shaming.
Like, right. Versus
them.
like making them, like villainizing them.
Yeah.
And it's like, to some extent, like, sure, like they should be villainized and like there should be consequences, period, always. But like a lot of the times I feel like especially with the level of like emotional disruption people have and their mental health these days, there needs to be a level of education. People need to know
across the board, yeah,
before it gets to the point of something bad happening. And like, if you tell the person who's the victim, like, it's your responsibility to say something, nothing can be done unless you say something, and you don't turn around and say, well, hey, your actions are making other people uncomfortable and we need to tell you like this is wrong and this is why and you need to change it, their behavior is never going to change. And you get into these larger situations where these people who are in power are doing all of this stuff and it's all coming out and it's become a big scandal. And it's like, why it all connects back to the stuff we talked about before. Like, why are you not handling the situation before it's a situation? Why are we not proactive in dealing with these things, whether it's wellness, whether like assault, whether it's crime, whatever it is. Like, if we're not, it's like the whole thing with police officers, right? It's like a police officer saw somebody who was doing something wrong, but they didn't cross the line. If they wait until they cross the line, then something bad has already happened. Like, we live in a world where we wait for something bad to happen and then try to fix it, and it's backwards.
Yeah, because I mean, by that time, whenever it does happen, the system is already corrupt. So what are you trying to? You have to rebuild the system.
And it's just but it's weird to see it come out that way in so many instances, right? And then like act like, oh, it's happening because of this, or oh, it's happening because of that. No, like, it's happening because the bigger umbrella of what all of this sits under is the same way. We allow shit to happen. Like, I don't understand it. I really don't understand it.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. It's a bigger issue that we can't handle ourselves, obviously.
I know. Which is why I like have had lots of conversations about like if I have sons, like, they are going to grow up knowing what is the wrong thing to do versus feeling it out and seeing what they get away with. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Prevent the problem before it happens.
Right. Exactly. And like, same thing with like, I'm not just to say like with sons, like same thing with daughters. Like,
it's same all around.
You need to know where a line is drawn and have the ability to be socially in tune and socially aware to not be put in those positions, because that is the problem. We don't teach it like it's inevitable. We teach it after it's an issue.
We're a broken record at this point. We've been saying it for like 6 months.
I know. We teach everything after the fact.
Yeah.
That's why I want us to find, like, that's the thing too, is like we keep going back to seeing like a lot of the same stuff that we talk about on these episodes, which I think is important. I feel like if you're going to have a message, you need to really take it home. But I want to find other fun ways for us to like bring it into stuff that we do.
True. Also, I don't know if this is related, but I finished a book.
Okay.
Because we're talking about empaths, so whatever.
Yeah.
It's called How to Be Alone by Lane Moore. The series of essays, kind of. It's like every chapter is like a kind of an essay or like a moment in time in her life that like she's been alone or like she's been dealing with being alone even though she has people around her. But you know, all this bullshit that's pretty relatable, probably between the two of us. But she said things where it's like being an empath is so fucking annoying. Like it's so draining because you don't think about yourself first, you think about others, which is also a thing that we keep talking about for the past like 6 months.
Yeah.
And seeing and being with people that don't think that way puts so much more of a toll than they think it does on us. Like for me, if I am interacting with someone that is completely selfish and just does not understand basic empathy, literally is so draining. So just seeing this go on for like 6 months is so fucking draining. Just like think about the person next to you, like for once in your life.
It's literally emotional exhaustion.
It's so emotionally draining and like
it really affects every other part of your body.
literally.
It's so funny because Dan and I were just having a conversation last night about how I have like I was talking about like if like feelings like inadequate feelings that like I feel as like a person, like moments where I feel inadequate. And like he has a very logistic mind about things. Like he can be emotional, but like he's very logistic first.
Okay.
I'm a very emotional person. Like I feel everything. So like we were talking about why I am the way that I am and some of the things that I like used to hear as growing up.
Oh yeah, that's also a thing with growing up. Whatever you hear growing up, whether it be negative or positive, it just
right. There's like the saying that like or like the statistic that by the time you hit 12, you'll have heard like a bajillion negative things about yourself, like a bajillion more negative things about yourself than positive things. But what's funny is like Dan would say like, oh, I remember hearing a lot of that stuff too, but like it was just like it was like he would give all this perspective about stuff, like stuff that is logical, stuff that I know, and stuff that I have to remind myself. But at the end of the day, when people say things to me, especially when you're a kid, especially when you're like an anxiety kid who's gone through traumatic things, like especially that, like things stick when people say them to me. You know what I mean?
100%. I couldn't tell you, like I couldn't remember times in my own life, but I can remember distinctly when things have been said to me, if that makes sense.
The funny thing is, like, okay, there are three moments in my life, and these facts are totally like erroneous, like they are not necessary. Do you remember Miss Newcomb?
Yeah. So random.
Gym teacher, this amazing little tiny old lady. And I literally will never forget. This is going to be funny, and this has nothing to do with the conversation we were having, but these are the weird things that I remember. I will never forget, we were in a health class with her. And she told us, she was like, ladies, you got to make sure that you wipe from front to back, because if you wipe from back to front, you're going to have to deal with a lot of other stuff. I will never forget that fact, and the fact that she was the person who told us. I will never forget that. There's another fact that someone in my dance school had like said to us, like about like sweat, that I will never forget. There's like another random like sexual fact that I had heard from somebody who I was friends with. There was a fact that literally, and this is so funny, I don't know if he's ever gonna watch this, but one of Dan's friends once made a comment about how like, and like, again, things that you know, but they just always stick, like you're never gonna forget this person said something like this, made a comment about like how washing your dishes with warm water makes no sense. You're just wasting hot water because you can wash your dishes with cold water. Like things that are so stupid, people say to me, and they get stuck in there and they play on repeat at like random times. So like whenever I go to the bathroom, I hear Miss Newcomb. Whenever I wipe sweat from my face, I think of this girl that I dance with. whenever like whatever sexual related thing happens, I think of that friend. And then whenever I'm washing dishes, I think of Dan's friend. Like there are random stupid things that stick in there. And then everything else that sucks also sticks in there, but like on a really deep level.
Yes, and the things that are very positive and enlightening and life-changing and whatever, forget it. I think it's like you need constant validation on like the positive things, because the negative things that you've been hearing since you were like young have just stuck. And like the random, and same here, like I know random shit that I don't know why I know, but I couldn't tell you when like a good thing happened. Like, like it sucks.
Well, that's why like I've had to do so much work on like making sure that you're reading stuff that's good and making sure, because if you're right, it's like those, for some weird reason, like the water flowing of negativity is just so deeply ingrained that it's like a huge river, and like it's in the ground, and it knows where it's going, and it has a huge lake to get into the ocean. Like it is so deeply ingrained, like that shit knows what's happening. But for some reason the positive one like starts to flow and then stuck. And then
also and not even that, again, back to this book, because it's literally the conversation that she's having in this book is like trying to be positive and like she's not alone, but all this shit. But when a positive thing does get said to you though, it's like, I don't believe you. Like that's the worst. It's so annoying to so many of my friends. It's just like, just take the fucking praise and leave it.
Yeah. But that literally was what we were like, Dan and I were talking about last night. I was like, I said to him, I was like, I give myself guilt for doing good things to myself, or like giving,
because you feel selfish.
Well, because that's what I remember being told, right?
Yes.
Those moments where I was told, you're selfish, I remember all of that. Like, and the funny part is that the people who had said it to me probably don't remember saying it to me.
That's the issue.
The worst part, which is why I now try to be, and you knew who I was. I can still be very blunt. I can still be very direct, but it's taken me some time to realize, and I watch it in other conversations with other people, how powerful our words are. So I try to
censor myself, but sometimes it just doesn't work.
And I feel bad because the person who
I
still don't do it with, and I feel so bad for this, is Dan, because I literally don't censor anything I say to him ever. So he has to process everything that I say and like has to deal with me. And sometimes I say shit that I don't really mean, or like I'm emotional and I just need to say it, and he's there when I say it. So I feel bad.
That's how I am with Ashley. It's like whoever your person is,
they have to cope with that.
They just kind of have to be like, oh, they're probably just like super grumpy, but it's not towards me. It's just like how they're trying to process shit. And like I always feel so bad, but then I'm just like, I don't know.
I like expect that, but I also don't give that. Like totally, Dan and I emotionally are such different people. So like this is why we constantly have to work on like each other, like ourselves for our.
I mean, yeah.
That's the only, like, being able to talk about this, the fact that I know that, like, that enough was so much work for us to figure out. But it's so hard. I try so hard to, like, think about what I'm saying before I'm going to say it. And I try to choose my words so much more carefully than I ever did. And, like, my tone of my words more carefully.
Oh, the tone helps too, yeah.
Because I feel like that is more what sticks. And it's like that Maya Angelou saying, right? Like people might not remember what you said, but they remember how you make them feel. So like, even in the moments where like somebody might not have actually said the words to me, like, oh, you're being selfish, or, oh, like, oh, you're making things difficult, or, oh, you're not worthy of this. People might never have said that to me directly, right? But like, that was how I felt.
Right. And if they do say it directly, that's even worse.
Right. And like, and those are the things that when I work with other people, and especially when I'm working with kids, I try to like keep that in the forefront of my mind, because I don't want people to ever feel that way. And then it comes back to too, it's like, how do you have those when something's not going right, or someone's made a poor decision, right? Going back to like the sexual assault stuff, like when somebody did something that is not good, still bringing that idea into those conversations. like that, like choosing your words carefully and making sure that people are understood and like not, it's so hard. Managing yourself is the hardest
thing. It's a daily commitment.
In the world. And I have seen
so many people have like disregarded though. That's the thing. So many people think that this is what I am, take it or leave it.
It's not something that we learn to do. It's something you have to seek out yourself. You have to all of this. You cannot, we don't learn this in school. We don't learn this in our families. Like, you literally have to seek out and have the desire to learn it on your own, or you're not.
Which why now, like, I read these they're not stupid, they're really helpful, like self-help books.
Right. And the funny thing is, like, I've had so many conversations with so many people about therapy, because now I like literally just like, well, I used to be super resistant to like,
break that fucking stigma. Fuck this shit. I used to go to therapy. Like, why does it matter?
And I used to feel weird about reading certain books and being around people, because again, these stigmas are stupid. And I was even watching a show the other day where like someone was being like, oh, why do you have to go to therapy? Are you one of the crazies? And I'm like, fuck me, this is part of the problem. But like, I use the word a lot more. And when I say it as a norm, so sometimes people miss it for a second and then they're like, wait a second, you what? You know, like, just to have those conversations, but like planting those small seeds and like having the conversations like we have all the time, where we talk about how important it is to, like, you know, there are self-help books out there that suck. But there are
some self-help books that like kick me in the shape. I'm like, I hate that, but I guess, thank you.
Wonderful and uncomfortable. And like, there are books out there, like I'm reading a book right now about people skills. Like, if I look back, like I had no people skills, like none whatsoever.
You think you did, but you didn't. Yeah. Huh? It's like you think you did, but reading a book, you don't.
I didn't have positive ones.
Yeah.
I could communicate
well enough to get you by.
Talk at people. I can't even give myself like the term communicate. But like, these are things that, like, basic things about being human that help us, you know, live fulfilled and like get to where we want to get to in life, that we need, that we're not necessarily taught.
And also, like, it just helps that like there are other people that are suffering the same thing that you've been suffering. Like, you know, so that because it's in a written form and it's like being read by thousands of people, like you're like, oh, like there are other people that need this, that are, it's like normal.
I was just listening to something, it might have been on the radio, like casually on the radio, where they made a comment, something, honestly I think it was a commercial for something stupid, but they made the comment that like anxiety and depression are experienced by every single person. There is no adult living on this earth who has not at some point experienced anxiety or depression. And I was like, huh. Yeah. Like, someone's actually saying that. Like, that's crazy.
Right. Like, you should probably say this more because people don't want to know that.
Yep, I just spilled water everywhere. I was at Walmart. Ironically, I went to Walmart because I wanted to buy, I have like a really good friend who has, on top of dealing with Corona, has been dealing with like, a lot of illnesses, like back to back to back to back. So I was, and like has been in a funk because of it. And like her wife was like telling me like a little bit how she's feeling and what she's struggling with. So I was like, you know what, like I want to go get her some stuff like that would make her feel good and like help her, and like I'll get her like a candle and like a little notebook to write in. And then I was like, a coloring book, because that's the crap that, you know, I was like, what else can I get that'll make this person like feel good? And while I was looking for like stuff to get, I went into Walmart and they had like these books that were like a lot of them, it's interesting to me, and it's interesting to me in the things that I'm reading, how many like taking action or like moving through anxiety and depression, people find like a lot of connections to like God and spirituality and religion in, which is great.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, but like there were a bunch of books like on this there's like a bunch of coloring books and like color by number books, and there was like a bunch of books that was like prose for managing anxiety and depression, and like a bunch of books that actually said the words on them. And I've never seen anything out, you know what I mean? Like, not, you have to be like that creepy person that's like hiding in the back.
I mean, same thing with literally the book is called How to Be Alone. Like,
right.
Like, you can't, there's no censoring there.
That's weird for, like, why are you reading that? Like, all of
right. I also have a book called, like, The Definitive or Not Really Definitive, like, Guide to Self-Care. Like, you know what you're reading. It shouldn't be like hidden within a message within like a message.
Should be black and white. Like the only one of the only solid good books that like has that without actually saying it is like books like Be More Chill.
Yeah.
Talk about
or like How to Not Give a Fuck or something.
Health and like it's through a whole story, and that's why you relate to it so well, and that's why people love it. But like that book talks about those things. Mm-hmm. So like subliminally talks about those things. So I was like, like that. Those are.
If people just read those types of books, though, they would become more empathetic.
I remember reading like the Judy Blume books. Like the Judy Blume book, like her books were literally about like an emotionally distraught teenage girl, like, and the stuff that you deal with. So like those coming of age books, they talk about them, but like it's not blatant enough. And then we get old and we live it and we stop talking about it, and it's like, all right, cool.
Like, where are the kids that read like Perks of Being a Wallflower, right? Like those coming of age stories. Like you can argue like Harry Potter, because that's like I can see it too. I can grow through that book. Like I've grown through those like series. Like where are those kids that are like
13 Reasons Why is like that too.
Oh my god. Did you read 13 Reasons Why when you were in high school, when it came out?
You were the one who actually, I'm 90% sure that you gave me the book and I carried it around.
I gave it to like everyone. I don't know where that book is. I think I gave it to someone and they just held it, which is fine, because like I feel like I don't need to read that again. Like I read it and I was like, please, can everyone just read this? Like it's just so like.
I don't know if I could handle reading it. But there were, like, I mean, obviously I watched the show and that was hard enough, but I don't know if I could handle reading it. There are so many like resources that we have. I remember reading Perks of Being a Wallflower, and I remember getting lost in that book, like in a good way.
Me too.
There are a lot of coming of age things, and there's so many things to be relatable to, and like being a teenager and all of that. And same thing.
Even The Great Gatsby, even though it really isn't there's no teenager in there, but
a ton of emotional, like mental wellness stuff layered in that book.
Correct. That's why it resonates at that age. Yeah.
Okay. So like, and like honestly, okay. Did you have to read the In Cold Blood book?
Okay, sidetrack. I was with a couple of our friends from high school. I'll just name them right now. It was Shruti and Monica.
Okay.
We like meet up every so often, and we were talking about that book yesterday. Really? And we were talking about that book, and we were talking about The Kite Runner, because we also had to read The Kite Runner, and how emotionally disturbing those books were at that age.
We were freshmen. We were going to freshman year of high school, weren't we?
Correct. That is way too young to be reading about a massive, very cold-blooded murder. And I was telling them there's one specific scene from that book, and I also watched the movie just because I'm such a movie buff that like I needed to see that movie too. The movie's really good. There's that one scene where they find the daughter in her bedroom, and it's just like, why as a 13, 14-year-old are we reading that? And not like Perks of Being a Wallflower. That should have been, like. But then again, Perks of Being a Wallflower also had like really dark shit.
Right. Well, so does Be More Chill, right? Like they all, and
they all do.
Okay, so that is what I am attracted to in a story. The not good stuff, which probably says a lot.
That says a lot about, same here. That says a lot about us as people, because I feel like, because we're attracted to like the shitty things, like if you're reading like a book that doesn't have a shitty thing, you're like, where's the shitty thing? Like this book can't just be all happy.
Here's my own analysis of this, which is probably, this is gonna get real dark for a second, but like have you ever seen Saturday Night Fever? This is like super weird. Have you ever seen Saturday Night Fever?
Honestly, I've just seen like clips that are just famous on the internet.
Right. All like the dance stuff. There's a lot of like gangs and like drug, like other bad things in that. Like it was Brooklyn, and like what were you expecting? Watched that movie way too young. But I was always infatuated with this is really to talk about on the internet, but it's fine. We're gonna put it out there. I was always infatuated with this one scene where this young guy like is standing on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Oh God.
Is like playing with death essentially on the bridge. He eventually like ends up like accidentally falling in, but like there are like multiple times where they go to this bridge and they're like messing around, and he's like like you could see the way like the whole thing being filmed, thinking about it. And like whenever those things happen, I want to know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like I start to, I don't want to say like, I've never been in a situation where I've ever fantasized about suicide or like anything, like aside from like those moments where you've had like when I had some really hard days where I was like, oh, it'd be so easy to just in my car. Like, but I would never cross that line.
Can I just like interject? Yeah. Have you heard of suicidal ideation?
No.
Have you heard of it? So there's a really good essay that I read when I was like deeply depressed. It just happened. I think honestly, I'm gonna take it as a sign from God or whatever universe, like whatever higher powers out there that like brought it to my attention on Twitter. But it was an essay from this woman that just writes for I don't know magazines or something. I don't know, whatever. Talks about suicidal ideation in a way that like it feels like I can't remember her analogy had to deal with water and like feeling like drowning and like just drowning would be great. Like, but it's not something that you want to do.
Right.
You want to run away from that situation at the moment, but like you don't intend on doing it, which when you're in a deep depression feels like every moment of your life you're just like, and like the whole like I feel like a lot of people like doing the whole I could just swerve. Like that's I feel like that's a more common thing that people don't think that's common. You know, like I feel like a lot of people have those days where you're just like, I really could just turn my wheel a little bit. Or like I really could just like, I don't know, run in traffic or something. Like it's just like those intrusive ideas that come in and you're just like, they're there, like you acknowledge them, but you're not actually doing it.
But there's something so interesting to me about experiencing, because when do you ever get to do this, right? Experiencing somebody else having
that thought or doing that.
Like watching somebody else on a bridge, like contemplate it, or like reading about somebody else going through that situation. Like there's something, it has to be at the heart of it connected to that like misery loves company situation.
Where, yeah, because then you don't feel alone. You feel like your thoughts are valid because someone else is doing it and you're not doing it physically. Like you're not
into that experience. But the moment where that line is crossed, where like they actually take the step, is where I'm like, okay, wow. You know what I mean? Like
because that's not a suicidal, like it's you're thinking about it. You're not actually planning on doing it. Like that's the fine line between ideation and like doing it, unfortunately.
Interesting. I feel like
I have to put a trigger warning like somewhere in this.
Yeah, probably. I mean, who thought we were going to talk about this? But I mean, it's all like.
But it's also like a very common thing. Like there were like thousands. I go back to the essay every so often when I'm just like, no, this is valid. Like, you're okay. Like, because a lot of people have liked and retweeted that tweet and like all that stuff, and like she's got 1,000 of hits on that essay. So it's like a very common thing. It's just not talked about. Obviously.
No, I don't think we talk. I was talking to somebody else too about, they were asking me about like what I do with my Instagram page, because like my Instagram handle, like I've been building that out.
Very positive.
Forward to positive. It is really positive. Mm-hmm. And like I honestly need it to be.
For your own sake, yeah.
For my own sake, and I hope that it can be something good for somebody else. But I got asked, like I get asked questions about it, like, how are you so positive all the time, or what makes you like bubbly? And like it's frustrating because I have to be very clear and explicit in like expressing the difference between trying to scope yourself in a positive mindset where you're handling every situation, good or bad, and you're trying to get through it and overcome it, versus like that toxic positivity where like you act like everything's fine and you say it's going to be great and you chalk it up to whatever. Like
there's work behind being positive.
Right. And like I try to show a lot of the work that it takes, because if you would have seen me a year ago, right? Like there was nothing there. I had no way to deal with it.
Just shell.
The positivity that was in my life was all toxic. I tried to fake it. Like I don't want to fake it anymore. And we have to have more of these conversations. If we can't actually talk about like the suicidal thoughts and like the negative things that we think and the shitty experiences we have and how you get through them and how you overcome them in a realistic way, we're never going to not be toxically positive.
Right. I agree completely. It's something that needs to be said. And there's a lot of work that goes into it, unfortunately. It's literally self-care and just like being positive is such a daily commitment that like, I mean, most days we don't want to do it. Being like us being like not mentally well and not mentally stable, like there are days where you just go backwards, and that's also fine. And you just have to find a way to go forward.
Those are the moments where I really had to learn about being gracious and like with myself. Like
you have to forgive yourself. That's what I keep telling people.
Like, F yeah, let's go. I'm ready for this day. I'm going to kill it. And then there are days where I wake up and I'm like, how do I do this? And it's not that I don't have motivation to want to accomplish things. I do. It's just that like my pipes are backed up with crap. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing flowing through them because
it's all, yeah.
And that one day you just have to be like, all right, I need to do something good for myself. And
even if it's just getting out of bed.
Right. Even if it feels like torture and it's something really simple, you need to find something good to do for yourself to like clear out your pipes, and then you go.
And also, like, another thing that for people like us that have been so, how am I, like, in tune to, like, not asking for help?
Yes.
To ask for help. Like, that's also a thing that needs to be, again, I say this all the time, too. Like, your brain's a muscle. So you're trying to rewire your brain into being, like, you asking for help isn't being annoying. Like, it's like, it's a simple text or a simple whatever. It's just like, hey, I cannot get out of bed. Can someone just say something so I can get out of bed?
Is showing weakness. I can't ask for help because I see it as a sign of weakness, which I think is, again, logical brain, literally teacher. I want everyone to ask me for help so that I can help them because I understand that's the only way that we're going to get better. I get it. I understand that you have to do that. Can I do it emotionally because of my...
For people that can't see what I'm doing, I'm like... I'm like motioning to like both of us. Like, yes.
Foundation of my thinking is irrational and ridiculous.
Yeah, it's because we've been taught otherwise.
I'm going to look bad. Like, what is... This was... And it's funny because while Dan and I were having this conversation last night, he's saying stuff to me and I was like, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
That's the worst. That's literally the worst. Even in therapy, when I went to therapy, I was like, yeah, I know. And he'd be like, okay, just do it. And I'm like, I can't.
Like, and I say to myself, and then I give myself a hard time because I'm like, you're a walking contradiction. Like, you are
because for someone that has depression and anxiety, it's like when you're depressed, you can't do anything. But when you're anxious, you want to do everything. And then when you're depressed, you want to stay in bed. When you're anxious, you're like, no, get out of bed because like this is the spot that's making you anxious.
You're mad at yourself.
You're also mad at yourself, and also you're like, but like you should feel bad. You're okay though. So it's like the worst contradiction ever. And like you know the answers, but also you think that it doesn't apply to you because you're nothing.
Yep. Absolutely.
Hello.
Absolutely. And it's so, like I said, it's literally, it comes down to like the constant fight between.
This is why being positive and like self-care is a daily commitment to like people like us, because like if you don't commit every day to like bettering yourself or just getting out of bed, you're fucked.
That's the whole, I love the whole like the filling your cup, the filling of the cup
analogy.
The filling of your cup. So anybody doesn't know it, like you constantly have to be filling your cup, because if you are expected to pour into something else, if you have nothing to pour, then what are you giving? And when I think back to the days when I didn't have stuff, or let me say this, when I think back to the days where I was letting people pour in things that I didn't know into my cup and was making it like muddy and weird, I was pouring that into other people, regardless of what my intentions were. Like, that's what was happening.
And that's the most toxic thing you can do to people.
Right. Like,
and you don't even know. You don't even know. They don't even know too.
I've had a conversation with a couple of like my people that are close to me about how if you are not, you learn about manipulation. Like, I've learned about manipulation and having to realize the ways that I've been manipulated by people, even when they're not doing it intentionally, because they are pouring from a cup that's effed. and they're not aware of the fact that their own cup is effed. And
that's when you have to like forgive them
without perspective.
And like it sucks because you do have to kind of forgive them for that because they don't know. And like a part of you is like, I don't want to forgive them because they fucked me over. But then you have to be the bigger person and be like, but like also like they didn't know.
Nodding my head very persistently right now. And then that comes back to, right? It comes back to this vicious cycle of, well, you try, if you're like me, you try to have conversations with those people and explain to them what your relationship with them is doing to you and how they're affecting you. And you try to teach that person, right, they might not realize that they're doing something wrong, that's happening. And then that blows a huge hole in your chest, because if that person, like, it's the same thing, right? That person has to be willing to show up to that line with you and reflect on themselves and acknowledge that. And that goes back to everything we were saying before. There are so many more people in the world who would not do that over people who would do that.
Correct. And also, there's also me, who kind of does that depending on the person, but also will just let it go.
Right.
And I don't know which one is worse.
That's where you have to decide. There are some arguments that it's like, no, this is how every argument works for me. I either I start with that intention, right? This is what's happening. This is what has been going on. This is what I'm trying to address, right? And then somebody gets defensive.
That's right? Because they think that they're being yelled at. And or like you did something wrong, but we're not telling you did something wrong. We're just telling you what we feel.
Right. Even when I've tried in a lot of different ways to come into conversations like this, where I say, this is how I'm feeling.
And you should start with that. For people that are learning too, that's what you should start with.
This is how
I'm feeling, not how you are. Yeah.
How I'm feeling. And now, when you bring that to somebody's attention, right, you can't control how somebody's going to react to you or what they're going to say in response or how they're going to feel about what you're telling them how you're feeling.
It's really hard. It's really hard to have those conversations for people that are not in tune with their mental state.
Right, themselves, right? Who can't look at themselves.
I feel like my thing is people know themselves to a superficial level. And that's it. Like, it kind of stops there. Like, they won't dive into the workings of like how they react to things and how they perceive things. They'll know what makes them happy, what makes them sad, and they'll avoid or go towards, certain things, and that's it. Like, that's it.
It's scary and it's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable because then you have like people like us that are trying to like.
But then it's like you're the bad guy for pointing out something and like making it seem
pointing out a flaw that they probably don't want to unpack, but you're just like, but I'm also helping you out because like this is a thing that you're probably doing to everyone. But
it gets to the point where, like where you said, right, if nothing changes, you have to be in a situation where you're emotionally strong enough to let that person continue to act however they're going to act, say whatever they say, and you either go, oh, all right, cool, and duck.
Just disassociate.
Water dripping off a duck's back, like you do that, you let it roll, and you keep going on with your life, or you, like you said, you separate yourself.
You cut yourself out.
And it's
like people,
an easy process. When you start, the hardest part about starting this own self-discovery process for yourself is learning about how your people are going to change.
Because you can't
like, I guess both ways it's good as long as you're good. But
take care of yourself first, but also like it's hard because you don't know how people are gonna react. Like you think you'll know someone until you have these difficult conversations, and then you're just like, I thought this would be okay, but I guess not. And that's the worst part. Even if it's like family, and that's the worst part too.
Right. And that's okay. Like it just has to be okay. And like those moments when those people hurt you and you feel like you have a dagger stuck in your heart, like those are the moments where you really have to teach yourself, like,
that it's okay.
Come on, like it's fine. That's
the worst part. That's the worst part.
There are so many more. I heard and I loved it. Like there are so many people that are out there who are your friends that you don't know yet.
Yeah.
that's what and it stinks when you think about all of those like deep connections you have with somebody, speaking about like talking about like coming of age, like when you're going through those connections with people and you feel really close to them, like when you hit those moments that things shift and they're going to happen.
They happen all the time.
People for you to connect to. I was listening to this very interesting like podcast audio where the person was talking about how the reasons why humans are able to develop the way they develop is because we learn to collaborate. Mm-hmm. And like we collaborate within our like in animal species, like they collaborate within like their herds and their families, and it's a lot of like genetics and whatever, but like we have the reason why we were able to rise above is because we've learned to communicate with other species and other animals and each other and like collaborate at different levels with different, like that's why we are able to do that. We don't just hold a herd mentality, we hold a community mentality, and we're able to pick and choose who we want to be a part of that community. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But it can be really hard when we don't do that, right? Like if our family fosters us to say blood is thicker than water. Like I can't tell you how many times you heard that growing up. Like that's great, but
that should also be something that we should not say.
Right. I mean,
go on.
There are a lot of other things that could be thicker than water. It's water. Like then.
No, whatever.
So like that becomes, if you're born into that becomes hard because then you think you're like, there's an expectation set there, or like you grow up within a church and you're set to that community, or
because it just screws up every single relationship that you have when you're older. That's when your attachment issues start and end, like is your fucking upbringing.
Right. Well, right. All of your issues start with your upbringing. Yeah. You guys don't know that yet. If you think you have an issue and you haven't looked back at what your childhood was like I hate.
There's a bigger problem there if you haven't looked back.
But if you really want to understand what you got to do, like you gotta go there.
Yeah.
But it's just they were talking about this. This is so true. So like that's why I try to keep myself like on this idea of like talk to people and like connect with other people and see what positive like you can get from that, or they can get from you. Like try to do that more.
The worst, yeah. But keep going. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good.
No, I was gonna say the worst is when, because I do this where I just don't talk.
I know that yep.
That still happens. That's still it's still such an annoyance because that's just how I was. Just like be quiet, just like stay there and just like you're fine. Like, and it still is a problem, but it's the act of trying.
Right.
Every so often is like what I'm trying to do. But it is very important to have these conversations, whether it be, and I've learned like it doesn't have to be verbalized. It can be through text. Like that's also like whatever medium you think is best for you. Like it doesn't, like these conversations don't have to go through like a phone call or like a face-to-face. Like I've had these conversations through text or through like written letters. Like it's whatever you feel comfortable with is also a thing.
Yeah. Communication in any form is still communication as long as it's happening.
Right. Like, and not communicating is the worst.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. I was listening to I guess it was like it was on like a video, and they were talking about like a lot of like generational curses, and like when you're the person who's experiencing the most, like your experience, you have to change something in like the generations of like who've come before you. And I feel like so many people are.
It's a shift right now.
Right. And my hope is that there are some people who are experiencing that. Because I remember when I first realized that, like that I had to be that person. Like, goddamn, like there's a lot of fucking responsibility. Like I don't want to. Like you realize something's wrong, right? It takes a lot of effort to stand up in the current, right? And
it's a lot of effort to make that decision to be like, I could stay here. It's comfortable here.
Right.
Or I could change it for the better and educate whoever else comes after me.
Okay. And I was reading stuff too about like the medical world is a great place for this because there's so much stuff coming out about the medical world and like all the practices and the like habits and the procedures that are wrong, that are just being done wrong. And I was reading an article about how like just because it happens common, like just because it's the most common response doesn't mean it's right. Just because it's like what's talked about and most well known doesn't mean it's right. And like and just because it's prescribed by somebody with a PhD doesn't mean it's right. So it's like being able to have those moments to evaluate for yourself. And that's why I think like we brought up like the knowing yourself, truly knowing yourself and like not the yourself that's been molded by somebody else or that's been poured into by other people, but like, and I guess this is why I could see why people having a religious connection to this concept, because like the best way to connect to your greater self is to connect to a higher power, and like that would be whoever's your God.
A sense of hope, yeah.
Right, like to have that you're connected to something bigger than yourself, but like to really take the time to turn in and really look at yourself and understand.
To sit with yourself is so difficult.
Right. You need to, if you want to stand for anything and you want to have a solid ground to be able to stand up in a flowing river of whatever, like you need to have that. And it fucking sucks. But like you need to have that, because you have no ground to stand on if you don't. Because that current is gonna push.
It's gonna push. You're gonna drown.
Push and push. And it's
you're gonna drown.
Interesting, because like this is what we needed to learn growing up. Like we didn't need to learn like the frou-frou ways that we talk. We've had this conversation before about like what self-care really is. Like we don't need that mainstream bullshit. It's
commercialized, it's monetized. Right. No, you need
to learn
uncomfortable self-care shit too.
You know yourself 101.
Sit with your anxiety and sadness.
Huh?
Like sit with your anxiety and sadness.
Like understanding all of that as we're younger is like the best educational journey that we could go
on. Correct. And also it comes with timing though. It depends on the person too. Like we may be having these conversations and people are feeling these things right now, but if you don't want to hear it, you're not going to hear it. Like it'll take some time to process.
Yeah. And everybody's going to be, I've met 12-year-olds who are probably more enlightened than I could ever hope to be in my whole life.
Great.
Like 60-something-year-olds who are like, I just realized a couple years ago that my whole life was not my life. Like everybody goes through it, but like I think we talked about this before. Like at any point in your life, if you've discovered who you are, if you've done something that
there's no timeline,
feel fulfilled, like that's what your purpose is for living. Like then that you win at life. But, like we can't. Everybody's got to do that at their own time, and like that's the biggest part. If you're somebody who's done it, who is an empath, who's like doing the work, your hardest job is dealing with everybody else.
Correct. Literally.
Still loving everybody else.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard because like internally how to deal with others and they don't know how to deal with you, and that's the hardest part. But also it's like because you're an empath, you want to teach them, but they don't want to listen. Like it's so difficult.
There was a conversation that I was having with a family, I'll be very vague, a family member about another family member. And my normal relationship with this family member is that like I am the issue. It's always me. They're the victim all the time. And I literally in the past a lot of like the issues that I've had stem from my relationship with this person. And I in the past would feel bad, or it would make me upset that they were like that they could say something mean to me, or like it would take a toll, But I've gotten to the point where I was like, I'm this family member was telling me something that was told to them about me from the other family member.
Okay.
And it was like, no, I was like, absolutely not. I was like, I'm not going to get put in this bad guy role. I was like, I'm the one who's like, I actually was at a point where I could finally defend myself.
Good.
Right. And like, able to say like, I'm not taking this bull crap anymore. We don't have a relationship. We don't have a relationship. Like I'm tired of it.
Over it. Yeah.
You need getting to the emotional
journey
that happens until you get to that point.
Yeah.
Earth shattering. But when you finally hit that point, it's the greatest thing that you could ever do for yourself, because you're saving yourself from that turmoil.
Correct. And like, it's never too late.
No.
Right? Like but also you have to put your foot down. Like when those moments arise and like what the right answer is, but you still revert back to your old self, that's also fine. Because that means you're just not ready. Like but you're not ready to.
You have to go at it again. You have to practice doing it again. You have to learn how to do it again.
Yeah. So there's always a next time. But at least for people that are going through this, like they know the answer. It's just like you're not physically ready to do it. That's also the hard part too. Because you know the answer. Like, we know the answers. We've been known the answers. Like, it's just like we're not ready to accept that also makes sense for us.
Yeah. There it comes. Oh my goodness. We talked about so much stuff right now. What even happened?
I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened.
Okay, so here's my request. If you are a listener to this podcast or you are a viewer of this, what do I call
YouTube? It's just a YouTube video.
this? Blog?
Vlog? Vlog.
Yeah, sure. I couldn't think of what they were called. Cool. Thanks. Perfect. So if you are somebody who subscribes and you tune into these conversations, your input is how we're going to keep going forward. We want to know what's important to you. Like, do you want to keep hearing about like self-development? Do you want to hear about what Maria and I read? Or do you want to hear more ridiculous experiences and stories from our past? Do you want to see us try something? Do you want to see us, I don't know, what can we offer to you? Because you guys matter and we want your input, because this, as much as Maria and I talk, we used to have these conversations all the time, and we have them now to share them, to have it be something of benefit to you. So
Agreed.
Help us know what we can do for you. And you can tell us anonymously, you can email us, you can reach out to either one of us on Instagram. You can find me at Empowered to Positive. Maria?
I'm private, so let's just leave it at you. Or just email us.
Yeah, do that. Whatever you want to do, we want to talk to you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. And we will talk to you in the future with more friends and more good stuff.
Cool.
Cool.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.